In chapter 7, I talk about the egg costing spreadsheet. This has been fantastic, and I still use this tool when I consult to farmers to find out what are their input costs and work out some of their profitability. Please enjoy the training and download your copy of the egg costing spreadsheet.
Okay, so this is the spreadsheet. We've made it simple. This is something we've created and sort of tweaked over the last couple of years. So it's quite easy. Anything in yellow, they're variables that change, and they're different for every farm. But what I'm going to do, excuse me, I'm going to fill them in and talk about each one and how they relate. Now, because I've put naught in every box, you won't have any readouts until I fill in the next one, because they've all built on an Excel, I suppose you'd call it an algorithm, and formulas to add and subtract and work out the different metrics. So here are all your inputs, or most of them. We do have another box here, which is other weekly costs. Sometimes we get asked like, oh, what about this, or what about that, some other random cost. I'll start at the top. I'll go through them. Now, please be aware, these are different for every farm. So the figures I put in, they might not be exact, but they're figures which are from a farm. It might not be from your farm. But when you fill this in for your farm, they are what they are. So to give you an example, for the feed, we're going to say it's $600 a tonne. That's $600 a tonne. Now, you might pay $470, you might pay $650. There's nothing good, bad, or ugly about that. It is what it is. And that's the beauty about this spreadsheet. You just put in whatever the figure is, and you can see your profitability. Carton costs, so these are the 12-pack egg cartons, how much they cost per carton. I'll put in 30 cents. Again, you might be more or less. And some of those things, especially with feed and cartons, and also pullets, like to buy your chicks in, they come down to location, because a lot of the variables on that is freight. Labels for cartons. Now, most people get their cartons already labelled, so I will leave that blank. But if you're printing your own labels, they could be 2 cents, they could be 20 cents, but in the members area, we talk about sort of, if you are printing your labels, a very cheap and effective way to print them for like 2 cents each. So I'm going to leave that blank, but I've put the box in there because some people may print their own labels, so you can work that out. Freight per box, meaning 15 dozen. I just put $2. So that $2 would not be a... It wouldn't be like paying a courier. That would be to cover your costs. So let's just say every Thursday you go to town, and when you go to town, you do your egg deliveries and you deliver 10 boxes of eggs, and that costs you $20 worth of like fuel or time or whatever. So it ends up being $2 a box. Again, it is what it is. Yours might be $5. It might be free because you sell all your eggs at the farm gate. Labor, packing dozens per hour. You want to be doing at least 30 dozen an hour. So within a 1 hour period, if we started packing eggs right now, 1 hour from now, we want 30 dozen packed at least. Anything less than that, you want to make your systems a bit more efficient. You could still be profitable, but not as profitable. Labour to care for your birds. So this is down the paddock, moving your caravans, moving your fences, filling up feeders, filling up water. Now, I work this out as an average because there might be some days where you do all of that and it takes you 2 hours. You've moved the caravan, moved the fences, filled the feeders, filled the waters, checked something else, and you've spent 2 hours. The next day, you just collect eggs and you're out of there in 15 minutes. So I'll put 1.5 hours as an average, which I think is pretty conservative. It's probably more like an hour a day down the paddock. Bird cost. So when you buy your hens in, how much does that cost? Now in this example, I'm working out buying in point of lay pullets, and the algorithm, the metrics built in behind this is we're going to keep them for a year. So this spreadsheet automatically writes them off to know that each week they're 1 week closer to the end of their laying life. So after a year, we sort of we're going to need to get new birds. So often they're $13 or $14 each. So let's just put $13.50 in. There we go. Next, and these aren't in any particular order. Consumables per week. This could be sticky tape, texters like your stationery, a paper towel in your egg packing shed. These are just little consumables per week. I'm just going to put in $20 there. You might find it's $30 a week for you. You might find it's $10 a week. Production. This is what percentage of eggs are you getting from your chickens? Most of the time, as an average, you work on 80% production. So, easy way to work that out. If someone goes, how do you work out your production? If you've got 100 hens and you go out there today and you collect 80 eggs, they're running at 80% production. Now, you could work out production daily, weekly, monthly, annually. Annually, you're going to work out an average of about 80%. If it's lower than that, I would look at your feed. Number of birds. This spreadsheet can be used for 2 birds. It could be used for 10,000 birds. I'm just going to say we've got 450 hens. Price per dozen. So this is how much you sell your eggs for. You want at least $6 a dozen. I'm just going to do $6.50. So that's what you're going to sell your eggs for. Feed per day per bird. I explained this in some other training to our members. This one doesn't really change. It's 100 grams per day. So 0.1 of a kilo. Even though it doesn't change, I just put it in there just in case someone's got some metrics to say, hey, I put 2 ton of feed in, and then after so many days, they eat it out so they can work out the feed per day per bird. But from what I've found, it's always 100 grams, or it's a little bit more, a little bit less, but it doesn't change much. Labour rate. So I believe you want to create a profitable system so it's profitable enough so you can pay wages. So I'm going to put in there $25 an hour. So if you're bringing in labour, you're going to pay wages to someone to do this work. So currently we're looking at labour for packing eggs and labour to care for birds, $25 an hour. Your next one is administration per week. This isn't worked out as an hourly rate. This is just it could be admin, it could be accounting, it could be following up invoices, something like that. Admin, I'll just do $30 a week. Other weekly costs. Now we've got consumables, which is your stationery. You've got your administration. This is just put in there. It could be insurance. It could be food license. It could be you had to send your Maremma dog to the vet and it's cost you so much money, and you might break it down per week. Whatever it is, that's literally why we've written other. It's other things. So I'm just going to say $20 a week. So that's going to be, what's that, $800 a year or something of other costs. So capital equipment. So if we've got 450 hens, we're going to get a chicken caravan 450, some fences, some feeders, a bunch of stuff, some egg trays. I'm going to say $27,000 worth. A number of years to pay off. So this is so we can write it off, like it can pay it off. So I'm going to say over 10 years. Now, with the 10 years, it's not a mortgage calculator, so it's not working out the 10 years based on an interest rate of whatever. It's just breaking it down per dozen. So I'll show you over here cost per dozen. So just because we finished on that one. Capital equipment, 25 cents. So for every dozen we send out, 25 cents of that is going to paying back the capital equipment for the next 10 years based on 80% production, 450 birds. So you can see here, these your feed is 90 cents per dozen based on 600 a tonne. Your carton's obviously 30 cents because it's a direct correlation, 30 cents there. Nothing for labels. Freight per box is 13 cents per dozen. Because here we're talking about freight per box, 15 dozen per box, so that should actually say freight per dozen. Labour packing per dozen, 83 cents. Labour to care for birds, $1.25. Consumables, cost of birds, you've got everything down there. Now, you can see here, it breaks it down to your weekly net income, monthly net income, and annual net income. So you can see based on this example. Now, there's a few things that you can tweak or you can re-look at to go, hey, how can we be more profitable? So one of the things, as I said before, I was quite conservative with this figure at 1.5 hours a day to care for just 450 hens. So let's just look at the weekly thing, $408. That's probably more like an hour. So let's just say we're efficient and every day we're making sure we're in and out of there in under an hour. So let's just change that to 1. So look down here, it's currently $408. We'll change that to 1, update. So $408 now jumped to $496, so just shy of $500. Just by making sure we're more efficient at caring for the birds, the time it takes. One of your biggest costs will be labour. So there you go, labour packing per dozen out of everything, 83 cents. Labour to care for the birds, 83 cents. The only thing bigger than that is your feed cost at 90 cents per dozen. So at 90 cents per dozen, let's just say you could get your feed for $5.50 a tonne. It pulls it back to 83 cents. There's not heaps in it. That's one thing I've found in the past. By saving $50 a tonne on your feed, you've saved 7 cents per dozen. It's not a big deal. Where the big deal is this: your labour, packing eggs, labour to care for birds. So let's just say you got efficient. Instead of packing 30 dozen an hour, you got up to 40 dozen. So currently we're just sitting under $500 a week net income. We got our systems tweaked, and now we can do 40 dozen an hour, and that 500 or just shy of 500 jumps to 540. So there's an extra $40 a week just by learning how to pack your eggs faster, because you're saving on your labour. So I can change it back to 30. But you can see here in the spreadsheet, you can change whatever figures you want. So when you double your hen capacity, you might say, hey, we're going to go up to 900 hens, and we're going to get more capital equipment. So we're going to have about 55 grand worth of capital equipment all up. You can see, there you go, your weekly net income is going to be about $1,200. So you can see here, you can make a lot of changes to take into account your individual circumstances. I'll just change that back to 450, and I think 27 we had in there. But some of the squares to take note of, because they're not all going to make a big difference. This square here, price per dozen. So if we're wholesaling them at $6.50 a dozen, let's say we're now going to sell them all at the farm gate for $7.50 a dozen. Again, we're just shy of $500. Let's change that to $7.50. We've only increased it by $1 a dozen. Gone from 500 to 600. Oh, I only put it up. There we go, 750. From 500 to 700. So you can increase your income by about $200, over $200 a week, just by working out a way to increase your price per dozen. And we've got clients now that are moving from wholesaling their eggs for, say, $6.50 a dozen to selling them direct to public to $7.50 a dozen, because you can see there, just on 450 hens, an extra $200 a week extra, which ends up being a net income of over $35,000 a year. And please remember in that, you're still paying labour. So let's just look here. In this example, let's just make this 0, which means you're doing all the labour yourself, go that zero, what's it looking like? Well, on this, you're now taking home $1,000 a week. You're taking over $54,000 a year because you're not outlaying that labour. But I like to be realistic, because there may be some times where you do want to go on holidays, you do want to bring in help. So we're going to put that back at $25. So I wanted this just to be a quick webinar, which sort of shows you this is some of the money that can be made. And there are some of your variables. Look at your labour rate. Look at the price you sell per dozen. And these two, like most of it all comes back to labour and the price you sell your eggs for. If you can keep these efficient, and over time you do, if you're measuring your time to say, okay, I've done all the feed, all the water, all the fences, I'm just collecting eggs, and I can be in and out in 15 minutes, it's going to save on your bottom line, because you're now not spending that time out with your chickens. You can spend it on marketing, or you can have it sort of as free time or something. Especially when you're paying wages. When you're scaling up, this is very important. When you're doing all the work yourself, it doesn't matter as much. But when you're paying wages, and you show a staff member first day you do a job, and you show them that it takes you an hour, where you could actually do it in half an hour, you've just set a precedent that job takes an hour. But if you make it efficient and put the steps in place, and you can save your labour time, whether it's in the packing shed or out in the paddock, it makes a lot of difference. So just there, labour to care for birds, one, if we make it 45 minutes a day, so that would be 0.75, going from $700 a week to $750. So there's a lot more money to be made as you make your farm more efficient. So I hope that's been helpful.